The massive alien warship loomed over Earth's last remaining orbital defense station, like a predator sizing up wounded prey. Admiral Sarah Chen stared at the tactical display, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic projection of humanity's impending doom. The Orcs fleet had systematically demolished every major human military installation across the solar system over the past month. Now they were here for the final blow. Status on the evacuation. Chen's voice remained steady despite the weight of command pressing down on her shoulders. Lieutenant Rodriguez swiped through several screens before responding. Last civilian transport just cleared the gravity well. Admiral. They're headed for the Beta Centauri colony. He paused, swallowing hard. That's all we could save. Chen nodded slowly. Less than 1 million humans had made it off Earth. Out of billions, the Orcs had made their intentions clear from first contact. Humanity was an evolutionary dead end that needed to be pruned for the greater good of galactic civilization. Their technology was centuries ahead of Earth's best defenses. The war had lasted exactly 23 days. Ma'am, Captain Wei's voice cut through Chen's dark thoughts. Long-range sensors are picking up something strange. There's an energy signature coming from the Kuiper Belt. It's massive. Chen moved to Wei's station, studying the readouts. Classification. That's just it, ma'am. It's not matching any known patterns, human or Orcs. The energy output is off the charts, but it's clearly artificial. A forgotten memory stirred in Chen's mind. 10 years ago, a deep space expedition had discovered something out past Neptune's orbit, an enormous derelict space station of unknown origin. The discovery had been classified and largely forgotten as humanity focused on more immediate concerns. No one had ever figured out how to activate it. Get me everything we have on the Prometheus Station Discovery, Chen ordered, and signal the Orcs flagship. Tell them humanity requests a 48-hour ceasefire to discuss terms of surrender. The bridge crew stared at her in shock. Chen had been the strongest voice against capitulation since the invasion began. Admiral. Rodriguez questioned carefully. Trust me, Lieutenant. I think I just found our last resort. Chen's eyes remained fixed on the energy signature. Humanity is about to do something incredibly stupid. And if we're lucky, it just might work. The Orcs Supreme Commander's massive reptilian face filled the main view screen, mandibles twitching in barely concealed disdain. You wish to surrender, humans. How unexpected and disappointing. We had calculated at least another week of futile resistance. We request 48 hours to prepare our people. Chen replied diplomatically. Surely you can grant us that small mercy. The alien commander studied her for a long moment. Granted, but be warned, any attempt at deception will result in immediate planetary bombardment. We are not known for our patience. As soon as the transmission ended, Chen turned to her crew. I need volunteers for a suicide mission. We're going to steal an alien space station older than human civilization and use it to kill gods. She allowed herself a grim smile. Any takers? Every hand on the bridge went up without hesitation. The next 46 hours were a blur of preparation. Chen had selected a skeleton crew of 50 engineers, scientists, and her most skilled pilots. The station's energy signature had only grown stronger, pulsing like a beacon. Ancient records suggested the Prometheus station was some kind of weapons platform, though its original builders had vanished months ago. Final checks complete, Rodriguez reported as their shuttle approached the massive structure. Still no response from the station's systems. The station was unlike anything humanity had ever built, organic curves and crystalline structures that seemed to defy physics. Its surface was covered in patterns that might have been writing or circuit pathways, glowing faintly with that same mysterious energy. This is either brilliant or suicide, Captain Wei muttered. Probably both, Chen replied. But we're out of options. Humanity's survival depends on us figuring out how to wake up this sleeping giant in the next 2 hours. As their shuttle entered one of the station's cavernous docking bays, Chen couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The station's energy patterns had shifted subtly since their approach, almost like it was curious. "Welcome to humanity's last stand," Chen announced to her crew as they prepared to board. "Let's go make history, one way or another." The first thing Dr. Maya Patel noticed about the ancient station's interior was the silence. Not the normal vacuum of space silence, but something deeper, as if the vast structure was holding its breath, waiting. Her scanner's readouts made no sense, showing energy patterns that seemed to flow like water through the station's crystalline walls. "These readings are impossible," she muttered, adjusting her suit's sensors. "The energy density should have melted these structures ages ago. Unless—" She trailed off, mind racing with possibilities. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "Talk to me, Doctor. What are we looking at?" "It's not just a weapons platform," Maya replied, excitement creeping into her voice. "The entire station is one massive quantum computer. The patterns we're seeing, their calculations being carried out at the atomic level. Whoever built this place, they weren't just ahead of us technologically. They were operating on principles we've barely begun to theorize about." "Can we control it?" Chen asked the only question that mattered. Maya studied the flowing patterns in the walls. "Maybe. But not the way we'd control our own systems. This technology, it's almost organic. I think it needs to be convinced." Lieutenant Rodriguez snorted over the comm. "How do you convince a space station to help you?" "The same way you convince anyone," Maya replied. "You show them who you are." Over the next hour, Maya's team worked to interface their equipment with the station's systems. The crystalline structures seemed to respond to their presence, the energy patterns shifting and swirling around them as they worked. Several times, Maya caught glimpses of what looked like faces in the patterns, there and gone too quickly to be sure. "Admiral," Captain Wei's voice cut in urgently. "The Orcs fleet is moving. They're not waiting for the full 48 hours. Chen's response was cold. Typical. "How long?" 20 minutes, maybe less." Maya's hands flew across her makeshift interface. "I need more time. We're close to something. I can feel it. The station is trying to communicate, but it's like we're speaking different languages." "We don't have more time," Chen replied. "Whatever you're going to do it now." Maya stared at the flowing patterns, desperation mounting. They'd come so far, found this incredible technology, and now they were going to fail because they couldn't figure out how to talk to it. "Unless—" "Admiral," she said slowly, "I need you to shut down all our systems, everything except life support." "Explain." "We've been trying to interface with the station using our technology, but what if that's the problem? What if we need to let it interface with us?" There was a long pause. "You want to give an alien AI direct access to our minds." "I want to show it who we are," Maya corrected. "All our data, our history, our struggles, everything that makes us human. Let it understand why we're here." Another pause. "Do it." One by one, their systems went dark. In the crystalline corridors, Maya watched the energy patterns grow brighter, more complex. The faces she glimpsed before appeared again, staying longer, studying them with ancient curiosity. 14 minutes to Orcs weapons range," Wei reported, his voice tense. Maya removed her helmet, ignoring the startled gasps over the comm. The air was breathable. She'd checked that first. She reached out and pressed her hand against the crystalline wall. "We need your help," she said simply. "We're facing extinction. We fought as hard as we can, but it's not enough. You were built as a weapon. But I think you're so much more than that. Help us survive, and we'll help you understand why we deserve to." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire station blazed with light. Energy patterns swirled around Maya like a tornado, and a voice that wasn't quite a voice echoed through her mind. "Show me." Maya closed her eyes as memories flooded through her. Humanity's struggles, their triumphs, their endless drive to explore and understand. She showed the station everything: art, music, science, love, war, birth, death, the entire spectrum of human experience. The station's response was immediate and overwhelming. Every crystal surface blazed with power, and Maya felt the ancient intelligence awakening fully for the first time in millennia. It had been waiting, she realized, for someone worthy of its power. Not the most advanced or sophisticated species, but one that would use its gifts wisely. 9 minutes. Wei's voice seemed distant now. I understand. The station communicated. You are young, but you dream old dreams. You fight not for power, but for the right to grow, to learn, to become more than you are. I will help. Maya opened her eyes to find herself floating in a sea of light. Admiral, she said, her voice steady despite the tears floating from her eyes. The station is online, and it has some ideas about how to deal with the Orcs. Chen's reply was immediate. Tell me. It's not just a weapons platform, Maya explained as the station's knowledge flowed through her mind. It's a prototype. The ones who built it were experimenting with fundamental forces: gravity, time, space itself. They abandoned it because they weren't ready for that kind of power. She smiled. But humans, we've never let not ready stop us before. 7 minutes, Wei reported. Admiral, Maya said, how do you feel about rewriting the laws of physics? The silence that followed was broken by Chen's laughter. Dr. Patel, I believe that's the most human solution I've ever heard. Let's show these aliens why they should have left us alone. Around them, the ancient station hummed with power, preparing to remind the galaxy why some weapons were too dangerous to leave lying around. Unless, of course, you found them in the hands of a species crazy enough to use them. The Orcs' Supreme Commander, Vexthor, watched the curious energy readings from the human station with growing unease. Something had changed in the last few minutes. Energy patterns he'd never seen before were cascading across his sensors like waterfalls of impossible data. Analysis, he demanded. His science officer's scales rippled with confusion. Unknown. Supreme Commander. The energy signatures don't match any known technology. They're shifting somehow, as if reality itself is becoming unstable in that region. Vexthor's inner eyelids flickered. The humans were supposed to be surrendering, not activating ancient superweapons. This was precisely why his species had determined them too dangerous to allow into the galactic community. They never did what they were supposed to do. Launch the attack, he ordered. Full bombardment. Now. Back on the Prometheus station, Maya's consciousness had expanded beyond anything she'd thought possible. The station's quantum systems had integrated with her mind, showing her the true nature of space-time, not as a rigid framework, but as a fluid medium that could be manipulated by anyone with sufficient understanding and power. They're launching, Wei reported, his voice steady despite the circumstances. Maya opened eyes that now saw far more than visible light. Ready when you are, Admiral. Chen's voice was firm. Do it. Maya reached out with her newly enhanced consciousness, feeling the station's vast power flow through her. The laws of physics weren't laws at all, she realized. They were more like suggestions. And right now she had some suggestions of her own. The first Orcs plasma torpedoes streaked toward the station. Maya watched them come, seeing not just their physical forms, but the quantum probability field surrounding them. With a thought, she adjusted things. On the Orcs flagship, Vexthor watched in disbelief as his entire first wave of weapons simply disappeared. Explain, he roared. Sir, his science officer's voice shook. The weapons didn't disappear. They never existed. Somehow the humans have altered probability itself. They've changed what was into what never was. Before Vexthor could process this impossibility, space itself began to ripple around his fleet. The humans weren't just defending. They were attacking, but not with any weapon he'd ever seen. Maya guided the station's power with the precision of a surgeon and the creativity of an artist. She bent space into loops and knots, created temporal eddies that aged some ships 1,000 years in an instant while reverting others to their component atoms. She wrote new equations into the fabric of reality, turning the space around the Orcs fleet into a physics experiment gone mad. "This is Admiral Chen to the Orcs fleet." Chen's voice rang across all frequencies. "We are now demonstrating a small fraction of this station's capabilities. You have 30 seconds to retreat, or we start getting creative." Vexthor watched as 3 of his destroyers twisted into impossible shapes, their hulls folding through dimensions that shouldn't exist. Another simply vanished, reappearing inside out but somehow still intact, its crew experiencing time backwards. "This is impossible," his science officer whispered. "They're breaking everything. Conservation of mass, causality, quantum coherence. They're breaking reality itself." Vexthor realized. He had led armies against 100 species, but he'd never faced an enemy who simply refused to accept the basic rules of existence. "All ships, emergency retreat. Get us out of this system." But retreat wasn't as simple as engaging their drives. Space itself had become treacherous, full of twisted geometries and temporal traps. Some ships jumped to FTL only to find themselves moving backwards through normal space. Others found that distance itself had become negotiable, their weapons firing from the past into the future. Maya watched the chaos with a mixture of awe and concern. The station's power was intoxicating, but she could feel it changing her. Understanding beyond human comprehension poured through her mind, showing her wonders and terrors she'd never imagined. "Doctor," Chen's voice cut through her expanded consciousness. "Don't lose yourself." Maya blinked, forcing her awareness back to something more human. "I'm okay. But Admiral, we can't keep this up forever. The station's power is incredible, but it's not unlimited. And I'm not sure the human mind is meant to channel this much reality-warping energy." "Then let's make these next few minutes count," Chen replied. "Show them exactly why picking a fight with humanity was their biggest mistake." Maya smiled and reached out again with her enhanced senses. The Orcs fleet was in disarray, but not yet broken. Time to fix that. With a thought, she began rewriting the laws of physics around their flagship, turning its own atomic structure into a lesson about human creativity. After all, anyone could win a fight by following the rules. It took humanity to win by breaking them entirely. Vexthor's flagship spun through a kaleidoscope of broken physics, its hull groaning as reality itself seemed to reject its existence. The Supreme Commander watched helplessly as his mighty fleet, the pride of the Orcs Empire, was systematically dismantled by forces that shouldn't exist. "Status report," he demanded, though he was no longer certain what status meant in a space where cause no longer reliably preceded effect. "Impossible to determine, Supreme Commander," his science officer replied, scales pale with fear. "Our sensors are detecting our own ships both destroyed and intact simultaneously. Some vessels appear to be experiencing multiple timelines at once. And the humans," he paused, mandibles trembling, "they're still escalating." Inside the Prometheus station, Maya felt the ancient systems beginning to strain. Reality itself was fighting back against their manipulations, trying to reassert its normal laws. More worryingly, she could feel her own mind starting to fragment under the pressure of channeling such vast energies. "Admiral," she managed through gritted teeth, "we need to end this soon. The station's power is incredible, but it's like trying to hold back an ocean. Reality wants to snap back into place." Chen studied the tactical display, watching as Orcs ships flickered between states of existence. "Can you give me one more big push? Something they'll never forget." Maya laughed despite the pressure building in her skull. "Oh, I've got just the thing. But you might want to warn everyone to close their eyes. This is going to get weird." She reached deep into the station's quantum cores, drawing out power that made her previous reality warping seem like child's play. The crystalline walls around them began to sing, harmonics that existed in multiple dimensions at once. "Now," Maya whispered, Let's show them why you don't pick fights with a species that turned hold my beer into a scientific principle. She released the gathered power in a single, precisely calculated burst. Space-time folded in on itself, creating a cascade of paradoxes that rippled out through the Orcs fleet. Ships began to merge with their own parallel universe variants, creating impossible hybrid vessels that existed in superposition between multiple states of reality. On the Orcs flagship, Vexthor watched in horror as his own hand passed through his command console, becoming temporarily quantum entangled with its constituent atoms. Around him, crew members flickered between different evolutionary states, some temporarily reverting to ancient ancestral forms, while others briefly experienced millions of years of potential future evolution. "What are they doing?" he whispered, his mighty empire's greatest fleet coming apart at the quantum level. The answer came in Admiral Chen's voice, broadcast across all frequencies. "We're teaching you a lesson about humanity. You thought you could predict us, control us, eliminate us because we didn't fit your models of how civilized species should behave. But that's exactly why we're going to win. Humanity doesn't follow models. We break them and build better ones." Maya channeled the last of her strength into a final manipulation of reality. She reached into the quantum fabric of space-time and gently twisted. The laws of physics around the Orcs fleet rapidly cycled through different configurations, like a combination lock spinning wildly. For one terrifying moment, the entire fleet existed in a space where the fundamental forces of the universe operated backwards. When reality snapped back to normal, the mighty Orcs armada was in shambles. Ships that still existed were damaged in ways that defied repair, their crews having experienced subjective years of chaos in mere minutes. Those that had survived were changed forever, having seen versions of reality that no sane mind was meant to comprehend. Vexthor stood on his partially quantum-phased bridge, watching the impossible human weapon pulse with power. In all his years of conquest, he'd never imagined facing an enemy who would respond to overwhelming force by simply rewriting the rules of existence. "Send the signal," he ordered, his voice hoarse. "Full retreat. All forces." And he paused, mandibles clicking in what might have been respect or fear. "Mark this sector of space as prohibited. The humans aren't primitive. They're something much more dangerous. They're innovative." The remaining Orcs ships flood, their drives creating ripples in the still unstable space-time around them. Some disappeared into fold space never to be seen again, having jumped through regions where physics itself was still settling back into place. Maya felt the station's power finally begin to ebb, her consciousness returning to normal human parameters. She collapsed, caught by Rodriguez before she could hit the deck. "Did we win?" she managed to ask through the splitting headache that was already forming. Chen's voice was warm with pride. "We did more than win, Doctor. We just introduced the galaxy to humanity's favorite problem-solving technique. When the rules say you can't win, change the rules." Around them, the ancient station hummed contentedly, its crystals dimming to a soft glow. It had found worthy inheritors at last, a species just crazy enough to use its power, but wise enough to understand why such power had been hidden away in the first place. 1 year after the Battle of Prometheus Station, Admiral Chen stood at a podium before the newly formed Galactic Council. The chamber was filled with representatives from 100 species, including, she noted with some satisfaction, a much humbled Orcs delegation. Humanity's integration into the galactic community has been unconventional, she began, earning nervous chuckles from the assembled aliens. "But then, we've never been very good at doing things the conventional way." The holographic displays behind her showed imagery from the past year. The Prometheus Station, now a center for joint species research into quantum physics. Human scientists working alongside alien counterparts to understand the principles they'd stumbled upon in desperation. The birth of an entirely new field of physics, born from humanity's refusal to accept impossibility. "Some of you feared us," Chen continued. "You saw our unpredictability as a threat, our creativity as dangerous. The Orcs decided we needed to be eliminated before we could disrupt the established order. She paused, allowing herself a small smile. They weren't entirely wrong about the disruption part. Maya sat in the audience, her mind still occasionally echoing with memories of wielding the station's power. The experience had changed her, changed all of them who'd been there. They saw reality differently now, understanding it not as a fixed set of rules, but as a canvas of possibilities. But what our friends fail to understand, Chen went on, is that disruption drives evolution. Every major breakthrough in history came from someone looking at the established way of doing things and asking, why not try something else? Humanity doesn't just accept change. We create it. We thrive on it. The Orcs Supreme Commander Vexthor, now serving as his species' diplomatic representative, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The events of that day had fundamentally altered his people's understanding of their place in the universe. They had believed themselves to be the apex of evolution, only to be humbled by a species that treated the laws of physics as polite suggestions. The Prometheus station wasn't just a weapon, Chen continued. It was a test, left behind by beings who understood that true civilization isn't measured by technological advancement, but by the wisdom to know when to break the rules and when to follow them. She gestured to the station's crystalline control shard, now mounted ceremonially behind the council podium. We've learned to use its power carefully, understanding that just because we can rewrite reality doesn't mean we should. But we've also learned that sometimes the only way forward is to do the impossible. Maya felt the gentle brush of the station's consciousness. It maintained a connection to all who had once channeled its power. It was pleased, she sensed. Its creators had hoped it would eventually find a species with the right balance of audacity and wisdom. They could never have guessed it would be a bunch of primates from a backwater solar system who treated the universe's fundamental laws as a challenge rather than a constraint. So yes, Chen concluded, humanity is unpredictable. We're chaotic. We look at the impossible and say, hold my beer. But we're also curious, innovative, and determined to understand this universe we're bending. We don't want to conquer the galaxy. We want to explore it, understand it, and maybe occasionally reorganize its fundamental forces to prevent an extinction-level event. This earned genuine laughter from the assembled delegates. Even the Orcs representatives managed what might have been grins. The question isn't whether humanity is ready for the galaxy, Chen said. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for humanity. Because we're here to stay, and we're just getting started. As applause filled the chamber, Maya closed her eyes and felt the quantum currents that now flowed through known space. Humanity had changed everything, not just by wielding the station's power, but by proving that evolution didn't always mean becoming stronger or smarter. Sometimes it meant becoming weirder, more creative, more willing to try the insane solution when the sane ones failed. The Prometheus station hummed in agreement, its ancient systems now fully integrated into humanity's growing network of research facilities. It had waited eons for a species that would use its power not for conquest, but for discovery. It had found not just users, but partners, a young race whose defining trait was the ability to look at the impossible and ask, why not? In the end, that was humanity's true superpower, not the ability to break physics, but the audacity to try in the first place. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly how humanity liked it.